The Generation 1 Pokemon games were a huge success for Nintendo, so it only made sense to follow up the original set of games with a brand new one. As a child, the first Pokemon handheld game that I played was Pokemon Gold, and quite honestly, the game blew my mind. I grew up on Pokemon from the trading cards to the anime, but when I was playing Pokemon Gold, I felt like I had entered a new world. There were 100 new Pokemon set in a new region with a new hero. 8-year-old me had no idea what I was getting into, and many that picked up either Pokemon Gold or Silver could relate. Pocket Monsters 2, later renamed Pocket Monsters Gold and Silver, were the sequels to the original Generation 1 Pokemon titles. And in this episode of Game Facts, we'll explore the hit Generation 2 Pokemon video games. In the year 2000, Pokemon Gold and Silver was released in North America. While being similar to the Generation 1 games, there were a few major changes. The games were specifically enhanced for use on the Game Boy Color handheld system, where the Pokemon world was now seen in vibrant colors. Pokemon Crystal, which was released a year later, was specifically developed for only the Game Boy Color. Also, Gold and Silver introduced a new time system feature that used a real-time internal clock that keeps track of the current time and day of the week. This feature made it possible to capture certain Pokemon during certain times of the day. Following that, a new mechanic that allowed Pokemon to hold items was introduced. An item called the Berry was introduced and could be held to restore health or cure status effects. Adding to that, there were new specialized Pokeballs, an item called the Pokegear that functioned as a watch, map, radio, and phone, the introduction of rare shiny Pokemon, and Pokemon breeding. To top it all off, the game takes place in a new region called Johto with 8 new gym leaders, a new generation of Team Rocket, and lots of places to explore. Gold and Silver had begun development right after Pokemon Red and Green were released in Japan. The second gen titles were intended to release in 1998 and synchronized with the end of the Pokemon anime's first season. But with development issues, Game Freak being preoccupied with the N64 title Pokemon Stadium and the localization of the first generation titles, Pokemon Gold and Silver were put on hold. The 3.5 years of development the game went through was hell. President and CEO of the Pokemon Company, Tsunekazu Ishihara, was quoted as saying, "We were very greedy in terms of all the features we wanted to include in the games. I didn't intend to make any more Pokemon titles. I even thought that once we entered the 21st century, it would be time for me to do something else entirely." The events that take place in Pokemon Gold and Silver occur 3 years after the conclusion of the previous games. The player again plays as a boy in Gold and Silver, or has the option to pick a girl character in Crystal. Following that, the original starters from the previous games have been scrapped. This time around, you have the option to choose 3 new Pokemon, Chikorita, Cyndaquil, or Totodile. After a slew of gym battles, Team Rocket encounters, and challenging the Elite Four and the Champion, the player is able to travel to the Kanto region from the previous games and challenge the gym leaders there as well. And finally, there's the icing on the cake. The player is able to face off against the protagonist of the previous games, Red, deep within Mount Silver. Pokemon Gold and Silver delivered a true sequel to Pokemon Red and Blue. Though it clearly had some issues, it truly delivered an even more enriched experience for fans of the video game series. In fact, Pokemon Gold and Silver's success helped catapult Pokemon into a multi-billion-dollar franchise. By 2010, 23 million units of Pokemon Gold and Silver sales had been recorded, and in that year, remakes of the game were made for the Nintendo DS. Yes, Pokemon Gold and Silver have left behind an incredible legacy. Without their success, Pokemon may not have gotten as far as it is today. This is Game Facts, the history of Pokemon Part 2. Thank you for watching.